My name is Brittany Collins. I'm 30 years old. Last year, everything I thought I could trust was destroyed by the very people closest to me. But what happened in that courtroom, no one saw coming. They laughed at me, mocked me, until the truth hit so hard their smiles vanished in an instant. A week later, my phone lit up with 33 missed calls from my mom, each voicemail more desperate than the last. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about a secret buried for decades, one that changes everything you thought you knew about family. Before I reveal what really happened, tell me, what time are you hearing this and what city are you in? Drop it in the comments, hit like and subscribe, because what's coming next, you won't want to miss. That bond started early in the shadow of my grandmother's dream. My grandmother, Margaret, built Heritage Lens from nothing starting 50 years ago when she was just 25, a single mom in Boston with a battered camera and a fierce will to capture life's real moments. She set up in a cramped basement in Beacon Hill, developing photos for neighbors after putting her kid, my mom, to bed. Her talent for catching raw emotion like a bride's nervous smile or a toddler's first step turned that tiny space into a studio families trusted for decades. By the time I came along, it was a cornerstone of the community, a place where people brought their stories to be preserved. I was drawn to it from the start. While my parents, Joshua and Kimberly, were busy with their own lives, him chasing real estate deals, her running a clothing store, I spent weekends trailing Margaret at the studio. At 10, I was loading film into her old Leica, my small hands fumbling until she guided them. By 12, she taught me how to adjust exposures to make a portrait pop, a trick she'd learned from a mentor years before. Brittany, she'd say, her voice warm, we're not just taking pictures. We're saving memories for people to hold on to. Those words stuck with me, shaping how I saw the world. The studio wasn't just a job, it was a way to connect, to give people something lasting. My sister Lauren, 3 years older, never cared for it. My parents treated her like she was destined for something bigger, showering her with private art lessons and weekend trips to New York galleries while I patched together school clothes from thrift stores. For my 13th birthday, I got a used camera lens from Margaret, a treasure I still have. Lauren's 13th, a rented yacht party on the harbor paid for without a blink. The favoritism wasn't subtle. Joshua and Kimberly poured money into Lauren's whims, new laptops, designer bags, while I worked after-school jobs at coffee shops to save for college. I studied business at a local university, juggling classes with late nights at the studio, learning to balance books and schedule clients. Lauren, meanwhile, bounced between art programs, dropping out twice with flimsy excuses, wrong teachers, bad timing. Whenever she ran short, my parents wired her cash, no questions asked. She had a knack for talking her way into anything but keeping a job. That was another story. The difference between us wasn't just about money, it was about expectation. I learned early to earn what I wanted, to value what I built. Lauren expected the world to hand her everything, just like our parents always had. It drove a wedge between us, one I felt every time she'd breeze into the studio, eyeing the equipment like it was a cash machine. Margaret noticed it too. She never said it outright, but I could tell she saw me as the one who'd carry her work forward. As she hit her early 70s, her hands started shaking when she held heavier cameras, and I stepped up, running sessions, experimenting with new lighting, keeping the studio's heart alive. My parents rarely showed up, dismissing the place as a dusty relic. When they did, usually for forced holiday visits with Lauren in tow, they'd criticize the old-school setup or push for modern upgrades that missed the point of Margaret's vision. Those visits always left me uneasy, especially as Lauren's comments grew sharper. She'd drop hints about the studio's value, asking what it'd fetch if sold. My parents started tossing around phrases like family property and fair shares, their voices casual but pointed. I brushed it off, too focused on helping Margaret to see the warning signs. But as her health began to falter, small things like pausing to catch her breath during a shoot, I felt a shift. The quiet understanding between us that I'd take over one day was growing heavier. I didn't know it then, but that understanding was about to shatter when Margaret's health took a turn. I was at a camera shop in Boston, picking out film for the studio, when my phone buzzed with a call from Kayla Jenkins, who helped run Heritage Lens. Her voice cracked as she told me my grandmother had collapsed while setting up for a shoot. I raced to the hospital, but by the time I got there, it was over. A stroke had taken her at 75. Quick and quiet, the doctor said. The news hit me like a physical blow. Margaret wasn't just my grandmother. She was my mentor, my anchor, the one who saw me when no one else did. Standing in that cold hospital corridor, I felt a hole open up inside me that I didn't know how to fill. My parents, Joshua and Kimberly, took over the funeral plans, turning it into something Margaret would have hated. They booked a glitzy downtown venue, ordered a polished casket that cost more than her old Leica, and filled the room with towering flower displays more suited for a society event than a farewell to a woman who cherished authenticity. I stood there shaking hands with clients and neighbors who'd known her work, their kind words blurring together. Joshua and Kimberly played the grieving family perfectly, accepting condolences with practiced grace, while Lauren barely looked up from her phone, slouched in a corner. All I could think was how wrong it felt. Margaret deserved a quiet gathering like the intimate portrait she loved to capture. A week later, we gathered at the office of Mr. Stephen Larson, her lawyer, for the will reading. The room was all dark wood and tension, with me on one side gripping a worn photo of Margaret and my family on the other, Joshua rigid, Kimberly twisting her scarf, Lauren scrolling through her phone. Mr. Larson read out small bequests, some cash to a cousin, a camera to an old assistant. Then he got to the big one. To my granddaughter Brittany Collins, I leave Heritage Lens its building assets and the upstairs apartment. She's carried its heart as I did, and I trust her to keep it alive. The words landed like a bomb. Joshua shot up, his face red, yelling, "This is outrageous. That studio is family property." Kimberly burst into loud sobs, more anger than sorrow. Lauren flung her phone onto the table, shattering a glass ornament, and screamed, "I'm her family too. Why does Brittany get it all?" Mr. Larson stayed calm, sliding an envelope across the table. "Margaret expected this," he said. Her letter, written in her steady hand, laid it out. I'd spent years learning the studio's craft, respecting its purpose, while Lauren only showed up to ask for handouts. Joshua and Kimberly, she wrote, saw it as a quaint side project, not a legacy. Joshua grabbed the letter, scanning it like he could tear it apart. "Can we contest this?" he demanded. Mr. Larson shook his head. "She updated it 6 months ago, certified by 2 doctors. It's ironclad." Kimberly turned to me, tears streaming. "You turned her against us, didn't you?" she accused. I shook my head, stunned. This was Grandma Margaret's decision. Lauren leaned in, her voice venomous. "You always played the saint, didn't you? You'll pay for this." The harassment started that night. My phone lit up with texts, Kimberly's long pleas about family unity, Joshua's threats to fix this, Lauren's insults calling me a thief. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years sent messages labeling me selfish. Lauren took it further, posting fake online reviews about dirty equipment and rude staff at the studio, tanking our ratings. I read Margaret's letter every night, her trust in me a shield against their attacks. I refused to give in, throwing myself into running Heritage Lens. I built a website, added new portrait packages, and started digitizing Margaret's old negatives to preserve her work. Clients responded, booking slots, praising the fresh energy. But the pressure from my family didn't ease. One night Joshua called, his voice low and cold. "You'll regret not sharing with Lauren," he said. I hung up, my heart pounding, knowing that threat wasn't empty. It was the start of their campaign to break me. The harassment escalated one Saturday evening when Lauren burst into Heritage Lens during a packed family portrait session. She was drunk, her words slurring as she yelled, "You stole my inheritance, Brittany." She knocked over a light stand, the crash silencing the room. Clients stared, some shielding their kids, as Lauren pointed at me, her face twisted. "This studio's mine too." I stayed calm, asking her to leave, but she kept shouting until Kayla Jenkins dialed 911. Police hauled her out, her curses echoing down Tremont Street. I spent hours apologizing to clients, offering free sessions to ease their discomfort, but the damage was done. The studio's welcoming vibe felt tainted. I hired a weekend security guard to prevent another scene, but my family didn't stop. Joshua and Kimberly started calling the studio's line during busy hours, clogging it with accusations. Kimberly's calls were tearful, pleading for me to think of Lauren, while Joshua's were sharp, warning I'd ruin everything by keeping the studio. Then Lauren took it further. She hacked the new online booking system I'd set up, canceling dozens of appointments and flooding it with fake ones under names like Selfish Brat or messages mocking my work. Clients emailed furious about missed sessions, and it took days to restore the system and rebuild trust. I went to the courthouse, filing a restraining order against Lauren with statements from Kayla, and rattled clients, hoping it would end the chaos. But the worst was yet to come. At 2:03 a.m., my phone woke me, an unknown number flashing. I answered, half asleep, and heard, "Miss Collins, this is Fire Chief Daniel Henderson. There's a fire at your studio on Tremont. Come now." My heart dropped. I sped through empty streets, my hands shaking, praying it was minor. But when I reached Tremont, the sky glowed orange, smoke choking the air. Fire trucks surrounded Heritage Lens, their lights flashing. The studio was a blazing wreck, flames swallowing the windows, consuming everything inside. I stumbled from my car, the heat pushing me back. "That's my grandmother's legacy," I choked out to a firefighter who stopped me. Everything's gone. He shook his head, his voice heavy. We tried, but it's too far gone. I sat on the curb watching the fire devour decades of Margaret's work, her cameras, her negatives, the memories we'd preserved. By morning, only ashes remained, the building a blackened shell. Daniel Henderson approached, his face grim. This was no accident, Miss Collins. Gasoline was used at multiple points. It's arson. The word hit like a slap. I knew who was responsible, even before he said the jewelry store across the street has footage. We're checking it now. That afternoon, he showed me the video, grainy but unmistakable. Joshua's heavy walk and Lauren's sharp movements were caught circling the studio at 1:30 a.m., pausing at corners before rushing off. Minutes later, flames sparked on the tape. My chest tightened, anger replacing shock. They thought they could erase my life's work, but they'd miscalculated. I know who did this, I told Daniel Henderson, my voice firm, and they're going to pay for it. That vow drove me to dig deeper, uncovering a scheme bigger than I'd imagined. That vow pushed me to uncover a scheme darker than the fire itself. The morning after the blaze, I was numb staring at the ruins, but Kayla Jenkins snapped me out of it. She arrived with a stack of papers from her home backup studio, documents I'd forgotten in the panic. Check this insurance policy, she said, pointing to a recent update that doubled the fire coverage with Lauren as the secondary beneficiary. The signature looked like mine, but I hadn't signed it. This is forged, I whispered, the realization hitting hard. They hadn't just destroyed the studio, they'd planned to cash in on it. Kayla urged, we need to report this now. Her determination gave me the push to act. I contacted Stephanie Reed, a Boston lawyer recommended for handling fraud cases. She met me that afternoon, her office overlooking the harbor, and reviewed the policy with a sharp eye. This is sloppy work, she said. We'll trace it back. She subpoenaed records, finding Joshua's calls to an insurance agent he knew from his real estate network. The agent confessed under pressure he'd approved the changes as a favor, ignoring the obvious forgery. Then Stephanie dug up emails between Joshua and Lauren dated weeks before the fire. One from Joshua, the policy's locked. After the payout you're set, and Brittany's left with nothing. Lauren's response, finally. She deserves to lose it all. Reading those words, I felt a mix of rage and nausea, their plot laid bare in casual lines. Stephanie also got the full security footage from the jewelry store, showing Joshua and Lauren's faces clearly as they spread the gasoline. The police arrested them the next day, and news of it spread fast. The story blew up in Boston media. Arson and family dispute over iconic studio, headlines read. Reporters camped outside my apartment asking for comments on the betrayal. The public divided. Some clients launched a GoFundMe for rebuilding, sharing how Margaret's photos had marked their lives, like a couple whose wedding album survived a flood thanks to her archival methods. Others attacked me online. Greedy sister refuses to share, deserved what she got. One anonymous post called me heartless for prosecuting family. The backlash hurt, but it fueled my resolve. I spent evenings with Kayla sorting through salvaged items, her encouragement keeping me going. Margaret would be proud you're fighting, she said. Stephanie built the case meticulously, interviewing witnesses, the clients from Lauren's outburst, the tech guy who fixed the hacked system, even neighbors who heard suspicious noises the night of the fire. 6 months later, the trial began on a humid August morning. The courthouse buzzed with spectators, reporters jotting notes. Stephanie Reed was ready, her evidence stacked neatly, while Joshua and Lauren sat with Gregory Walsh, their lawyer, a showy type who loved dramatics. Joshua looked composed in his suit, Lauren demure with her hair tied back. Kimberly sat behind them, her eyes avoiding mine. Judge Nancy Wright banged the gavel, her voice cutting through the tension. Walsh opened, portraying me as the manipulator who'd poisoned Margaret against her family. This is a tragedy of inequality, he declared, where one granddaughter hoarded what belonged to all. Stephanie countered with facts outlining the harassment step by step. The drunken scene, the hacked bookings, the relentless calls. She called Kayla first, who described Lauren's rant, her voice steady despite the nerves. Clients testified next, recounting how the disruption scared them away. The insurance agent took the stand, admitting the forgery under Stephanie's grilling, his face sweating as he confessed Joshua's pressure. The emails came next, projected for all to see. Joshua's message glowed, Brittany's left with nothing. The room murmured. On day 3, Walsh pressed his narrative, and my family's smirks encouraged the gallery's chuckles. The laughter stung their mockery like a wave. I leaned forward and said, "Go ahead, keep laughing." The room hushed. Judge Wright called a recess, summoning lawyers to her chambers. She returned with a folder, her tone grave. "New documents alter this case," she said. "Lauren Collins is not Joshua and Kimberly's biological child. She's the adopted daughter of Joshua's late brother, a secret kept from all." The shock rippled Lauren, my cousin. She continued, Joshua and Kimberly forged Margaret's will 2 years ago to grab the studio. Margaret discovered it and fortified her will for Brittany. Gasps filled the air. Joshua went ashen. Lauren stared blankly. Kimberly sobbed quietly. The defense collapsed. They pleaded guilty. Judge Wright sentenced Joshua to 5 years for arson and fraud, Lauren to 3 with counseling. The gavel fell, leaving me hollow. The truth had shattered my family, but it also freed me to rebuild at a final cost. That truth didn't just end the fight, it gave me the clarity to start over. A week after the trial, I stood on the cleared lot where Heritage Lens once stood. The ashes swept away the ground, ready for a new beginning. The restitution from my father, Joshua, and my sister, Lauren, combined with a small business loan, gave me the means to rebuild. I didn't want a replica. I wanted a studio that honored Grandma Margaret's vision while carrying my own mark. So I created Margaret's Frame right on Tremont Street, keeping the original brick facade she loved and adding modern touches, digital screens showcasing client photos, a sleek online booking system, and a cozy lounge for families to relax during sessions. The process wasn't easy, months of meetings with contractors, choosing equipment, and sleepless nights worrying if I could pull it off. But every decision, from restoring salvaged frames to designing a new logo, felt like a step toward healing. On opening day, set for Margaret's 75th birthday, the line stretched around the block. Old clients brought stories of her portrait sessions, like the time she stayed late to capture a shy kid's smile. New faces came, drawn by local buzz about the comeback. Walking through the packed studio, hearing their voices and laughter, I felt Margaret's presence, like she was nodding in approval. The victory wasn't without pain. 7 days after the courtroom, my phone lit up with 33 missed calls from my mother, Kimberly, her voicemails desperate. Brittany, it's Mom. Please, we can fix this. You're still our daughter. I listened to one, her voice trembling, then deleted them all. I blocked her number, Joshua's and Lauren's, severing every tie for good. No visits, no letters, no second chances. They'd burned down Margaret's legacy, and I wasn't letting their guilt pull me back into that chaos. Cutting them out left me isolated, a raw kind of loneliness I hadn't expected. But I wasn't alone. Kayla Jenkins became my rock, managing bookings when I was overwhelmed, dropping off coffee during late nights, even joking about my terrible taste in takeout to lighten the mood. Clients stepped up too, some donating old photos from Margaret's era, a couple's black and white engagement shot, a family's Christmas portrait to decorate the new space. Those gestures reminded me that family isn't always blood, it's the people who show up when you're at your lowest. The months after the trial were a struggle. The revelation that Lauren was my cousin, not my sister, and that my parents had built our family on lies shook me to my core. I started therapy, sitting in a small office twice a week, unpacking the betrayal. My therapist asked hard questions. What does family mean to you now? How do you trust again? At first, I didn't have answers. I'd lie awake replaying memories, wondering how I'd missed the cracks. Slowly, I saw that Margaret had been my true guide, her faith in me stronger than any deception. Therapy taught me to validate my own worth, to let go of the guilt for choosing myself. I began collecting client stories, not just for decor, but to keep Margaret's spirit alive. One woman shared how Margaret's photo of her late mother helped her grieve. Another described a surprise proposal captured in her lens. Those stories became the heart of Margaret's Frame, a bridge between past and present. This journey burned a truth into me: family can be your deepest wound. Growing up, I thought love meant enduring unfairness, Lauren's favoritism, my parents' neglect. But I learned that family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you. Setting boundaries, even cutting ties, isn't betrayal, it's survival. Joshua and Lauren thought they could break me, but their actions forged my strength. Justice didn't just punish them, it cleared the way for me to rebuild, to prove I could rise from nothing, just like Margaret did when she started with a single camera. Her real legacy wasn't the studio, it was the courage to stand tall no matter who stands against you. Here's what I need you to take away: watch for the red flags in your own family: manipulation, entitlement, lies that make you doubt yourself. I ignored them for years, thinking it was my duty to keep the peace. Don't make that mistake. If someone's demands dim your light, draw a line, even if it's your own blood. Your mental health is worth more than their approval. Cutting out toxic ties is hard, but it's not weakness, it's power. You can rebuild from the ashes, like I did with Margaret's Frame, but only if you believe you're enough. One example sticks with me. A client told me she cut contact with a sibling who stole from her for years. It hurt, but it freed her to build a life on her terms. That's what I want for you: strength to choose yourself. Thank you for hearing my story. It's not easy to share, but knowing you're listening makes it feel less heavy. If this hit home, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Tell me about a family challenge you faced. and how you got through it. Your story might be the spark someone needs to find their own way forward.